4 p.m. The first order of business is roll call. Hannah, may we please commence roll call?
Wait, Hannah, I think you're on mute. Sorry.
Yes, that would be true. Okay, I'm just gonna call everyone's name and then just wait for a quick second until I hear you guys. Starting with Arij. Okay. Jocelyn Aranda-Ortiz.
Present.
Cool. Michelle.
Present.
Cool. Bayan.
Present.
Jocelyn Bravo. Misty. Dahlia.
Present.
Marion.
Here.
Sampriti.
Present.
And Daniela.
Present.
Hey, I just joined, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Hannah. The next order of business is reading and approval of the minutes. Please take this time to read over the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If not, then the minutes will stand as approved. The next order of business is reading and approval of the agenda. Please take this time to read over the agenda. Are there any corrections to the agenda? If not, then the agenda will stand as approved. The next order of business is public comment. Wasan, is there any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, thank you. The next order of business is ex officio reports. May we please have the report of our advisors?
Just good to be here. No official reports right now. Nice to be working with all of you this year, and Dre may also have something to say, but really look forward to a good year together.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the report of the student trustee. And as of right now, this is still season because the new student trustee will be able to, or will take office on July 1st. And since student is not present, we can move on to the next order of business, which is officer reports. So may we please have the report of the president?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Good evening, and thank you so much for being here today. I know that we don't do summer meetings all too often, but I thought it would be important to have this one so that we could confirm all of our cabinet meetings, as well as just talk about some of like the resolutions that we want to pass right now before the school semester starts. And I hope everyone is like doing well and staying safe, like to the best of their abilities. Just to kind of like start off talking about some of the stuff that we've been doing over the past couple of weeks. We've been like focusing on three main areas, and in no particular order. Like we've been looking at ensuring how UIC can maintain like a commitment to racial justice on campus. And so to that extent, like we first addressed a letter to campus with myself, Vice President Hannah, as well as Representative Marion. And I also want to recognize a couple of other people for their help on this letter. Thank you to like Jocelyn Aranda-Ortiz for her help with edits, as well as thank you to Dean Ellis and Dre Parker for their help with sending this letter out. As well as Aitana and Anna Maria for helping us like post this and get the word out on this. Since then, we've also held meetings with Black student leaders, like both grad students and undergrad students, to discuss some of their demands on campus. As a result of this, we were able to submit a letter to the Chancellor, President, Provost, and Vice-Chancellor's offices to talk about some of the changes that we want to see coming up in the fall semester. And then we're also planning on hosting a USG-led town hall on July 2nd at 6 p.m. with Chancellor Amiridis, Provost Poser, Vice-Chancellor Tolliver, and Vice-Chancellor Coronado to answer student questions and concerns. We're going to talk more about this later on in discussion, but basically our goal here is to be able to collect questions and to address some of the demands that have already been submitted, and to get a public statement from UIC to hear what sort of steps that they're taking and what's going on there. And then there are also several other sort of projects that are ongoing, looking at reforms to a UIC PD oversight board, potentially increasing the number of student patrols on campus and reducing the involvement of the UIC Police Department, changing the way that UIC alerts are handled in a way that's more informative and less inflammatory at sometimes, potentially changing the curriculum so that there is inclusion of gen eds that focus on systemic racism, potentially making sure that the increased funding that's going to the counseling center is going to actively diversifying their staff, which I know is something that USG has focused on in the past, and we're just continuing to take on that mantle, as well as increasing hiring diversity with tenure track faculty, as well as different sort of projects that can increase the enrollment and retention of Black students on this campus. And then two of the other buckets are looking at the safe and effective reopening of campus during COVID-19. So I've been participating in the monitoring and containment working group with administrators, public health professors, public policy professors, and kind of generally we've been talking about monitoring for COVID-19 to ensure that there is appropriate screening of all the students that are coming back on campus in the fall, as well as safety measures to prevent another sort of outbreak from occurring. So this has been 3 meetings a week essentially to talk about these things, and we've been looking at all sorts of things like contact tracing, mandatory masking policies, so on and so forth. We've also started to host bi-weekly-ish meetings with CSI, and this is open to everyone. And the goal there is really to just talk about how student organizations are going to be reopening in the fall semester. And they've got a ton of ideas already, and they've already done a lot of the groundwork on this. And they will be having future conversations with specific student organizations to talk about their needs. And I think that that'll be a great place for us to kind of step in and also provide some of our own input and help them out with that. And then sort of on a tangent from that is to work on implementing a new tutoring system. So I've been working with the Provost office as well as Vice Provost Nikos Varelos on centralizing tutoring and moving to an online platform. Because of course, with the COVID pandemic and all of learning being done through a remote system, it does get a lot more difficult for us to stay motivated and to ensure that we're able to really succeed academically. So making sure that that academic support exists, particularly one outlet could be through tutoring. And then the last point was focusing on the new Title IX changes as well as sexual harassment on campus. So there are new Title IX policies, which include massive changes to the system that need to be implemented by August 14th. So I've been part of the OAE's Title IX task force, as well as the Dean of Students subcommittee. And we've been trying to implement these policies in a way that supports survivors and might also involve some sort of changes to the Dean of Students handbook and the code of conduct there. I also created a student working group to discuss these policy changes so that we could receive input from students who are involved in Title IX advocacy or involved in forms of sexual harassment prevention advocacy, to get their advice and get their feedback on some of these changes and some of the things that they want to see on campus. And sort of the goal is later on in the summer to host a town hall or some sort of educational programming. And I feel it's very important to also include incoming students who don't really know too much about UIC and UIC culture, as well as might not know too much about Title IX. So it's important to include them in the conversation as well. So these sort of things will probably be occurring closer to August. And then throughout the year, kind of working with the WLRC and CAN to produce year-long programming around the prevention of sexual harassment on campus. And I also wanted to recognize our Representative Aranda Ortiz for her work in Title IX advocacy and her continued commitment on all these fields. And I yield the rest of my time to questions.
Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. If not, then the report of the President will be filed. Next, we have the report of the Vice President.
I'm gonna make sure to unmute myself this time. It's lovely to have you guys all here today. I'm super excited to kind of get this show on the road and continue working for the rest of the year. So to start with, the last couple of weeks have involved a lot of working in terms of mental health on our campus. So that involved a lot of conversations with Vice-Chancellor Tolliver, as well as his office and some other key administrative players on campus, and understanding what they're doing currently. So the three things that stood out in their reports were the creation of an iAdvise system, so linking advisors on all parts of our campus so that students can be seen more holistically. And if a student were to mention, say, food insecurity in one of their advising appointments, a note would be going into the system, and then there would be follow through on the end of all of the staff and faculty on campus, or whoever has access to those reports, based off of privacy concerns and whatnot, of how to get the appropriate resources to that student to then take care of their wellness. And then another change that has been made are budget changes. So the counseling center's fee cycle is up for review this year. And according to Vice-Chancellor Tolliver, there have been amendments to then change some of the budget so that the counseling center has more money to work with. And then lastly, there's been changes to an incoming student survey for freshmen and transfer students, and that focuses on 6 key areas of student development that allow students to basically identify whether they're interested in getting resources for any of those 6 key areas. So whether it's food insecurity or immigration support, things like that. And then again, there's another aspect of follow through where the students that indicated that they were interested would then be reached out to by those resources, and then that connection would be made. And then some of the work that we've been doing on the student perspective of it is to kind of make suggestions on how we can be following through with all of these changes. So suggestions like perhaps allowing the counseling center to have an online intake form, or to show when when the first available intake appointment would be, so that a student knows about how long they would have to wait. Another possible suggestion is potentially creating a directory of providers in the area, mental health providers in the area, so that students can kind of filter through depending on what they're looking for. They can kind of filter it out based off of whether or not they have insurance or if they're in like a certain area, so that we have connections to resources even beyond our campus. And more or less that kind of feeds into then altering our website to make it a little bit easier for students to access the mental health resources that they need in a clear-cut manner. Furthermore, there are suggestions to potentially look at different online mental health platforms to see if those are something that students would prefer to use. That way kind of taking away some of the wait time from the counseling center if we could do that. And then eventually the goal of this is sometime later to create a focus group with students to kind of figure out what kinds of things address their needs and what kind of resources they're interested in using. And eventually this should lead to kind of an interactive survey that can then be used by most of our students to then kind of answer a tree of questions that guides them to 2 or 3 applicable resources on campus or even off campus for whatever it is that they're dealing with. That way students are well connected to the resources that we have to offer. And if they're not, then there's a way to kind of allow them to still lean on the university resources for support to find what it is that they're looking for. And then the other initiatives for the rest of the summer and throughout this year include focusing on creating resources for undocumented students, whether this is a physical space on our campus or kind of a resource pool that can be found online, but keeping in mind their privacy concerns as well. Furthermore, kind of building USG's relationship with Bonfire, the independent news organization on campus, seeing if there's ways that we can support them in either sustainability or, in sustainability, whether that means allowing them a sort of budget to hire a full-time staff writer or whatever that might look like. And then the last thing is to then kind of take care of student organizations on campus and seeing what it looks like in our return in the fall, seeing kind of how to support them best in terms of transitioning to online meetings or online events or ways to hold in-person events while abiding by a lot of the public safety and health guidelines. And yeah, I yield my time to any questions.
Are there any questions?
No.
Okay, so if there are no questions, then the report of the Vice President will be filed. Next, we will move on to the report of the Treasurer.
I hope everyone is doing good and staying safe. I do not have a report for today's meeting, but if you have any questions, I'm willing to answer them.
Thank you, Anshu. Any questions for Anshu? Okay, so if not, we can move on to the report of the speaker. So for my report, first of all, hi everyone. I'm really excited to see you all here. It's been a long month, so it's happy to see everyone's faces back here. I'm really, really excited to be working with you again next year and to be working with the new administration and advisors. I have a good feeling about this next year. It's going to be fun. So yeah. So some of the things that I have been doing, I have been having meetings with the executive board where we discussed USG matters such as certain events, what ideas we have for the future, and nominations. I also had a meeting on Robert's rules with the president and vice president, where I tried to introduce them to Robert's rules and how to use them. Later in the summer, I plan to start working on the new USG Constitution that is more thorough and that uses examples from other colleges. And I plan to keep this operation very small because the more people there are, the harder it's going to be to write it. But I do plan to ask a few people for help. And if you have any ideas for how you see the Constitution or if you see any gaps in the current one, then please let me know and I'll do my best to see if I can include those in the new Constitution. But that's pretty much for me. Are there any questions for me? Okay, so if not, the report of the speaker will be filed. Let's see. Um, the next order of business is old business, and there is no old business. The next order of business will be new business, and first we have Resolution 2020-SU1-800. Hannah, may you please read it?
Yeah. Okay. So the title is USG support of the letter written by BSU and BGSA. So to begin, whereas the members of the undergraduate student government recognize the centuries-long systemic oppression of Black peoples by the United States of America, and whereas President Wassim Kumar and Vice President Hannah Ahmad on behalf of USG have been involved in the conversation that led to the creation of such a letter, and let it be resolved that USG signs on to the letter presented by the Black Graduate Student Association and the Black Student Union in its demands to the university administration.
Thank you. So would you like to explain a little bit what this resolution is about?
Yeah. So basically, Wasson and I wanted to kind of help USG provide support to the students that wanted to reach out to the administration and make demands for, again, kind of addressing racial injustice on campus. And within that conversation, there was a letter that was created that listed the demands to university, and basically this resolution makes it an official position of USG to then sign on to that letter.
Thank you. So I will now open up the floor for discussion. Are there any questions or comments regarding this resolution? Keep in mind that because we're only having one meeting right now, and we don't know when the next summer meeting will be, if there is even one. We're probably going to be voting on this today. So if there's anything that you guys would like to change, or anything that you would like to add, or just please make sure to say that, because we're going to be voting on this later. Okay, so it looks like there are no questions. So Wasan, would you like to make this an executive order?
Yes, absolutely. I move to make resolution 2020-SU1-800 an executive order and voted on today itself.
Okay, so the president has moved to make this resolution an executive order. So we will be voting on this today. All those in favor of adopting resolution 2020-SU1-800, please say aye.
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 All that oppose, please say nay. Does anyone abstain? Okay, the ayes have it, so the resolution has passed. Next, we have resolution 2020-SU1-900. Wasan, could you please read it?
Absolutely. So the chief sponsors on this are myself, Vice President Hana Ahmed, and Representative Marian Udoetuk. And it goes, whereas the undergraduate student government recognizes the centuries-long systemic oppression of Black peoples by the United States of America, and whereas President Wasan Kumar, Vice President Hana Ahmed, and Representative Marian Udoetuk, on behalf of USG, released a statement to the greater UIC community regarding racial injustice reflected upon the Black community, then let it be resolved that USG posits the contents of this letter as the official position of our organization. The USG condemns all forms of overt and covert racism, and we will strive to dismantle these systems to the best of our ability.
Thank you. I will now open up the floor for discussion. Are there any questions or comments regarding this resolution?
Hi, so this is Jocelyn Bravo. What would be the difference between this and supporting the BSU letter? Like, would USG be writing their own statement?
Yeah, I can answer that. So in the letter that that we sent out to like the UIC community, I did make a bit of a mistake in the sense that I did claim that this was USG's position without like previously acknowledging like the legislature and like passing this through as a resolution. So this would amend that, and this would like include this as part of like the USG official position. But it wouldn't change anything beyond like what we had also accepted through like the BGSA BSU letter. In other words, I mean, like we're not necessarily like doing things like on our own without their consent.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, if not,
Yeah, I move to make resolution 2020-SU1-900 an executive order and expedite voting to today.
okay, so the president has moved to make this resolution an executive order. All those in favor of adopting resolution 2020-SU1-900, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All that opposed, please say nay. Does anyone abstain? Okay, the ayes have it. This resolution has passed. Next, we have resolution 2020-SU1-901. Wasan, would you like to read it?
Absolutely. So resolution 2020-SU1-901 is the creation of the Student Affairs Committee and Campus Life Committee. So whereas the novel coronavirus presents unique challenges to every aspect of the daily lives of students, these challenges represent an urgent need to increase the representation of diverse student groups and the planning capabilities of the undergraduate student government. And whereas the USG Executive Cabinet determined that this could best be accomplished by the replacement of the Student Life Committee with two separate and concomitant committees the Student Affairs Committee, and the Campus Life Committee. These committees will retain and expand upon all duties granted to the Student Life Committee and be subject to the same governing principles and privileges, including discretionary funding and cabinet stipends. And whereas the goals of the two committees are as follows: the Student Affairs Committee will center on promoting student academic success and empowering students. The Campus Life Committee will center on the experiences of commuter students and dorm students and maintaining relationships with the student organizations on campus. Then let it be resolved that the USG Constitution, Article 4, subsection 4.02, be amended as follows. This adds the position of Director of Student Affairs and Director of Campus Life and removes the position of Director of Student Life. And then let it further be resolved that the USG bylaws, Article 8, subsection 4-E, be amended as follows. And this adds the Chairperson of Student Affairs with the following 4 goals: that they should work closely with the administration for improving quality of life, focus on student issues, on academics, curricular policy, safety concerns, and empowerment of students, gauge student satisfaction with living, working, and studying conditions on campus, and addressing student issues that occur in and outside of the classroom environments, and focus on the everyday student issues that affect health and wellness. And also enumerates the roles of the Chair of Campus Life, which includes working closely with administration to improve quality of life, as well as focusing on campus life, housing concerns, safety concerns, transportation, and international student life, as well as gauging student satisfaction with the living, working, and studying conditions, as well as addressing student issues that occur in and out of the classroom environment, and focusing on everyday issues that affect students' health and wellness. And then let it be further resolved that all instances of chairman be replaced with chairperson in the USG Constitution and USG bylaws.
Thank you. So I will now open up the floor for discussion. Are there any questions or comments regarding this resolution?
Hey, so I don't have a question about this resolution specifically, but like resolutions in general. Could you, like, if we end up having more summer meetings, could you like email them as PDFs just so we could like read them beforehand?
What do you mean
Yeah,
by
absolutely.
that?
So
What do
like
you mean
email like a PDF of the resolution before, so we can read it before the meeting, or like
Okay.
is that possible?
Yeah, so I actually sent the meeting packet over email, I believe on Sunday morning. Um, did you receive it?
Yeah, I did get the packet, but
Mhm.
I don't know if the resolutions were in it.
Yes.
Oh, they're in it. Oh,
Mhm.
okay. Okay. Cool. Sorry.
Yep. Okay, are there any questions or comments?
All right, if there are no questions or comments, then I move to make resolution 2020-SU1-901 an executive order and expedite voting to today.
All right, the president has moved to make this resolution an executive order. Um, all those in favor of adopting resolution 2020-SU1-901, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All that opposed, please say nay. Does anyone abstain? Okay, so the ayes have it, and this resolution has passed. Um, The next order of business is nominations. So today there will be nominations for the positions of Chief of Staff, Secretary, Diversity and Inclusion Committee Chair, Legislative Affairs Committee Chair, Public Relations Committee Chair, Student Affairs Committee Chair, and Campus Life Committee Chair. So let me walk you through the process of how the nominations will go. So first, the president will go down the list and state who is nominated. After every nominee is presented, each of them will give a 3-minute speech, and then they will have 1 minute for questions afterwards. So after everyone presents their speech, they will leave the Zoom meeting. Or if you guys want, we can put you into breakout rooms so that you're still in the meeting but in a separate room. And while the nominees are away, everyone else will be we'll be having a short discussion on each candidate and how we feel about that candidate. After that, we'll send you all a Google form where you can vote. And when everyone finishes voting, the votes will be counted and the nominees will return back to the main room and the results will be announced if they are ready, or if not, we can announce them later over email. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. Are there any questions regarding this process? If not, then, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, we don't have any doubts.
Okay, so Wasan, would you like to introduce the nominations?
Absolutely, thank you. So for nominations, we would like to nominate Timothy for Chief of Staff, Daniela for Secretary, Bayan for Diversity and Inclusion Committee Chair, Dahlia for Legislative Affairs Committee Chair, Aitana for Public Relations Committee Chair, Marion for Student Affairs Committee Chair, and Michelle for Campus Life Committee Chair.
All right, thank you. So let's just go down the list. Each nominee will get 3 minutes to give a short speech of why people should vote for you. So let's just go down the list and we're going to start with Timothy.
Hey, can everyone hear me? Yeah. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Yeah, I hope everyone's safe and healthy. Really quickly, let's start off with a couple of the initiatives that we had for this year. First and foremost, in this current situation, it's really difficult for both undocumented students and international students to manage with funds. So I think one of the things that we can do this year is provide a grant. We fundraise on our own independently, and we provide a grant for both international and undocumented DACA students. Next, we strongly feel we need to centralize the different organizations in the different departments that we have under one UIC banner. So I think we should focus on the funding aspect, SAFC, SAB, conduct, the judiciary, and together under one banner. Another thing we talked about was the listserv and group chat for the executive board for different student organizations to just have all of their opinions involved. And if they wanted a direct bridge, a link to USG, listserv and group chat between all these different organizations would be a good idea, just for like seamless conversation. Another thing was the newspaper. It requires funding for more content, more content, which is really important, but it should not be it should not come with any conditions from the administration. So that's something we need to focus on, the newspaper for UIC, Bonfire. The next thing that we need to do is build a relationship between UIUC and Springfield, build a relationship between their student governments and how they work and share resources and different ideas between each other. Then another thing that we should do with these members right now at USG, we should have CAPA, the public policy department professors come and address Robert's rules, address like identifying problems on campus, advocacy, drafting policies, and that would be really good help and resource for us. And then specifically during exams, the following semester, we need to provide subsidized rates for students, and if they need to stay on campus, and it would just be really helpful in that sense. A little bit of the experience that I had was in my first year, I was part of the Residence Hall Association. Then in my second year, SAFC, and was part of ASB and did alternative spring break and did funding for them and Indian Student Association. I currently work in meetings and conferences and have a relationship between the Dean of Student Affairs Office and Conduct Board and SLC. Yeah, thank you. That's it from my side.
Thank you, Tim.
I yield to the board for any questions.
Yep, okay, so we will have 1 minute for questions. So if everyone has any questions, go for it.
I have a question. How do you plan to
Okay,
keep
hey man.
hi? How do you plan to keep the fellow chairpersons accountable, and how are you going to be doing your meetings with them, and how are you just going to be contacting them in general?
I'm sorry, contacting who? I'm sorry, I didn't
Contacting the
hear
chair, like usually some people do weekly meetings, some people do bi-weekly meetings. So I just wanted to know how you're going to be working with each chairperson and how you're going to be helping them reach their goals.
Okay, so it's really important. We have, especially right now, we split up student life to campus life and student affairs. I'll be doing this over Zoom, over GroupMe, or whatever works for you guys, and just come into consensus. It's really important. We all have different goals. Administration has a couple of goals as well. So it's really important to stay, communicated, and whatever works for everyone.
Okay, so I came to the realization that 1 minute is not enough for questions. So let's just say 2 questions per person. How about that? So there is one more question for Tim. If anyone would like to ask, go for it.
I have a question. So, how do you plan on providing grants for like international students? Like, what is the feasibility of it? Like, have you talked to anyone? Like, is it possible? Like, international
So
students.
this is something that for international students and DACA, the undocumented status students, it's really important because they're not eligible for federal aid. And this is something UIUC has done. And we can do it 2 ways. We can administer a fee for on-student fees, maybe be it like 2% of the fees, or we can administer it to student organizations. And this is something UIUC has done, and it's worked out really well for them. And yeah, simply, I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now we can go to Daniela. So Daniela, I know your situation is a little bit different. So are you able to give a speech?
Yes, I think so. Hello, everyone. I'm currently at work, so this is gonna be a little bit fast. But I also didn't know I had to give a speech, but okay. I would be a great secretary because I am organized and I make sure to have everyone's attendance and everyone's contributions in the minutes included. I plan on being this way too if I am elected, and I am open to help in any way possible. If you have more initiatives, more responsibilities for the secretary, I am open to receive this, and yes, that's pretty much it. I'm open to any questions too, if anyone has.
All right, so we have time for 2 questions. So if anyone would like to ask anything. Or yeah, you guys can type it or you can send it to me privately if you'd like. Okay, so if there are no questions, then we can move on to the speech of the diversity and inclusion nominee. So Bayan, would you like to present your speech?
Yeah. Hi everyone. Okay, so my connection is a bit off, so tell me if you can't hear me well so I can adjust. So hi everyone. So there are 3 main issues I want to address this year. First, Black student safety on campus, raising awareness for students, especially undocumented students, and building community on campus. I don't see that student organizations are very well connected with each other, with their cultural centers, or with USG. So I think it's important to start planning to join their events, to attend their meetings, and have them attend our meetings, and just build this sense of community, especially that some classes are going to be online. Some people are not going to feel safe coming to campus because for health concerns. So keeping them connected is going to be important. and connecting them all with the cultural center. And I've already started doing that as part of the diversity and inclusion committee, so with the unity dinner planning. And it was an initiative to connect Middle Eastern organizations with the Arab American Cultural Center. So I'd like to expand on that and connect other cultural centers with organizations as well. And like the ultimate goal is connecting them to USG. And the second thing is, so we all know that Congress ruled against Trump's plan of dismantling DACA, and which is obviously like a great victory for everyone. But I I feel like undocumented students are the people who suffered the most during this pandemic. So it's important to work with them and raise awareness on what the rights are and the resources that are offered for them. And lastly, everyone's aware of the rioting and protests that's been happening because of George Floyd's death. So I think it's important to work with Black student leaders on campus, like attending Black Student Union meetings and working with them to see like whatever way USG can help. And finally, I want to remind you guys that we're all here working as a team. And if one person has a suggestion for a committee to work on a certain issue that hasn't been brought up, please speak up. And because I know like everyone sees issues from different perspectives. So it's important to work together and speak up when you have something. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So now we have time for 2 questions. Would anyone like to ask anything?
I had a really quick question. Because everything is going to be online and the way we do things and the way we connect with people is different, do you have any ways that you think that USG could be more of a resource now more than it has previously to orgs that you've been working with?
Yeah, absolutely. So virtual events is now like the thing, the kind of trend that's going on. So I know a lot of cultural centers have been doing events online, and I've actually been invited to some of the events. So I think it's good for USG to step in and join those events. Like for me, joining this event, so I've been invited because I'm a member, like for whatever organization that works with the cultural center. So attending that event as USG committee chair is gonna obviously be different because we're listening to what they have, like whatever event that's going on, whatever they're talking about. So we're listening to them and we're asking questions as, hey, like, hi, we're here as USG, so how can we help? You know, like directly talk to them.
Thank you.
Of course.
Is there any other questions? Okay, so if not, may we please have the speech of the nominee for Legislative Affairs Committee Chair, Dalia?
Yes. I'm glad to see you all, and I hope that you all have had like a good summer so far. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dalia Al-Adawi, and I've been in student government since the spring of 2019, and I was the chief of staff this past spring semester. My experiences in student government and the work that I've done has proven that I would be fit to take on the role of the Legislative Affairs Chairwoman. From the COVID-19 pandemic to the murders of Black lives by police that have been really important now and always, my goals for the coming semesters really emphasize this and keep this in mind. And I hope to continue to do the work that the previous chairwoman has really outlined for me. I will be putting an emphasis on staying informed and representing not only student government, but the student body in spaces where the student voices are very minimal. These spaces would include the Provost Council for COVID-19 changes on campus, the Safety Task Force, and the Chancellor's potential panel for the UICPD reform. As the faculty on our campus push to make changes in regards to UICPD presence, COVID-19 regulations, Black Lives Matter responses, in sexual assault cases, especially in fraternity and sorority life, I would work to provide student input in these decisions and ensure that the student body is aware of what is happening on their own campus. A large part of my job would also be to increase civic engagement. And so in accordance with this, and in accordance with any new COVID-19 regulations, I would hope to increase student voter retention and also promote the option to vote by mail, because I know that a lot of students are not going to be able to go out to polls. So it's important that they realize that they have other options. I would also make sure that lobbying is occurring to some extent in the spring, even if COVID-19 does not allow us to be in the Capitol in person. As students, we have a limited voice, which, it's hard to say that we have a limited voice and we don't always have a say in some of the things that are happening. I hope that with me taking on this position, I can make sure that some voices are heard when they thought they couldn't be. Thank you.
Thank you, Dahlia. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a quick question about lobbying. So, do you, like, as committee chair, pick, or like, no, wait, is it like a new topic every year? Like, do we lobby for a different thing every year?
For the UIVI systems, they usually pick the topic and we kind of go like we had to do in the spring. They explained to us the topic. We didn't really get a choice as a student government. However, if we do want to lobby for specific things, we can decide that, and let's say my committee, and I can spread it out to student government. I can kind of provide, let's say, a topic, or if you are interested in lobbying for a topic, I can put together like a group and we can go and lobby for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Would anyone like to ask one more question? Okay, so if not, thank you, Dahlia. Next, may we please have the speech of the nominee for Public Relations Committee Chair, Aitana.
Hello, and good evening. My name is Aitana. How are y'all doing? Okay, I'm gonna guess you guys are doing good. So first and foremost, thank you so much, Executive Board, for nominating me as PRC Chair. Last year, I was a part of PRC and was also the graphic designer, so I think I'm a really good fit to be in this position. And if you were to vote for me as PRC Chair, I will accept it wholeheartedly and rise up and do my utmost best to serve USG and UIC. Okay, so goals. I discussed certain goals with Asan and Hannah, such as creating a listserv for student advocacy groups, so that's easier to contact student leaders, having a detailed infographic about tuition, because it's extremely important for students to know where and what their money will go to and be used for. And finally, another goal is to promote USG as an alternative funding for SAFC, because yes, in the summer, my main goal is to flesh these goals out and do some research and plan steps so that in the beginning of the fall, we can get started right away. A personal goal of mine is to maintain and improve USG's digital media presence, because last year, the only platform we were very active and engaging in is Instagram. But with the establishing of YouTube and a new access for Facebook, I want to also be active and engaging in those platforms. Finally, I'd like the PRC to be more cohesive in a way, because last year we just dived into it. So as PRC chair, I'll take time in the beginning of the semester to discuss with my group about strategies for social media, as well as knowing how to be more cohesive in terms of branding. So yes, thank you so much for your time, and I yield the rest of my time for questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Aitana?
Wait, quick question. I'm sorry, this is a little late. A quick question. Was the what's it called? The webmaster and like graphic designer positions, were they part of PRC?
Yes, they were.
So you're gonna continue like with that?
Graph.
Like, do you think it's because I know we funded them, right? Like USG funded those positions. So do you think it's still good to continue having them?
I think having webmaster, that is important. So I would like to continue funding that. But as for graphic designer, I feel like it can just be folded into PRC.
Wait, hold up. I remember now you like made a resolution about getting rid of the position, right?
I did not make a resolution about it last semester, but I did express my concerns that graphic designer was not a position that I'd like to continue in the following year.
Okay. I remember. Yeah. Okay, good.
Cool. Thank you for the question.
Okay, would anyone like to ask one more question?
Yeah, I would. So, Aitana, I know that in meetings that I've been in, especially when they're much larger scale, there has been the risk of people that aren't necessarily in the organization joining the meeting, or people that could potentially pose a threat to the meeting's productivity. I was wondering, due to this, what you plan on doing to promote meetings, and how are you going to field people that you don't think, or let's say it's a student that wants to be on the meeting, but it ends up being somebody that is not a student and somebody that is not really going to promote anything that USG stands for?
That's a really good question. As for promoting, since I have now access to Facebook, I'll use that as well to promote, and then Instagram. As for screening students, whether they'll be productive or beneficial in the meeting, I'll talk to them beforehand and tell them like, what's your plans and what's your goals, so that we can truly understand what their purpose is when sitting inside the meeting or speaking in the meeting. But I would like to work more on that, because that is a really good thing to think about. So thank you for bringing that up.
All right, thank you. So next we have the nominee for Student Affairs Committee Chair, Marion.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. I would like to start off by saying thank you to Hassan for the nomination, for which I gladly accept. I would love to become this year's chair for the Student Affairs Committee and continue to positively contribute to our campus. This role focuses on academic success as well as student empowerment, both of which are extremely important to me. I have many events and key areas of focus that I would love to act on as well. I'm looking forward to collaborating with my future committee. Some events and key areas of focus of mine include giving out care packages and necessities to students who are coming back to campus, hosting different interactive campus events that help break inner biases within our student body, having an event to celebrate and connect women, identifying students on campus to each other as well as to different resources, generating more Black students on campus as well as resources for their success, work to help alleviate textbook costs by sharing alternatives such as rentals, buying from student body, as well as free options, increasing representation in UIC's counseling center, as well as much more. I believe that I am the right person for this role because I am passionate, organized, I harbor the necessary skills for this position, and I want to help UIC become a place of acceptance, resources, and growth for all students. And I yield for questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so if not, thank you, Marion. And next, may we please have the nominee for Campus Life Committee Chair, Michelle?
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a good summer so far. As Campus Life Chair, I will work to accommodate students during the reopening of campus and making sure they're comfortable attending class. And striving to improve the aspects of daily life at UIC. And I'll also do my best to continue working on initiatives from last year, like the dining hall initiatives, and increasing USG's presence within student orgs across campus, which we've been trying to do. And I've had a lot of experience working with university organizations like RHA, which we're also trying to incorporate more into USG in the future. And as a previous member of the Student Life Committee and interim speaker, I learned a lot from Marion and Daisy, and I believe that I can continue my work within USG. And thank you so much for nominating me for this new position.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. So, since all the nominees presented their reasoning, um, would you guys prefer to be sent to a breakout room, or would you prefer to leave the meeting and then come back?
We can all leave the meeting and like if we leave the meeting and then just ask to join again right away, we're all just pending because it's your meeting. So I think it'd be easier to just do that.
Are you guys okay with that?
Wait, so leaving?
Like you leave the meeting and then you click on the link again and it'll just take you to like a waiting room.
Oh,
the breakout rooms will be more effective.
She can approve this.
I can just, well, in that case, I can just do a breakout room. I already have them ready.
Whatever, guys.
Hold on. We're missing one person in the breakout room. Who would it be? It looks like someone left already. Daniela. Yeah, Daniela left already. But for the rest of you guys that are here, I'm gonna send you to the breakout room and have fun. Some of you will be able to vote, so I will find a way to send you a message. But other than that, have fun and we'll pull you back when we're ready for you.
Hi, guys.
So, thank you all for dealing with all of this. I know it's weird being online and stuff, but we're gonna figure it out. And thank you to everyone who gave me ideas for how to vote in the future. That's been helpful. We'll definitely look into it. So yeah. So with that being said, we already have the results. So Hannah, would you like to announce?
Yeah, of course. Okay. We'll just go down the list in order of how we did the speeches. But for Chief of Staff, congratulations to Missy. For Secretary, congrats to Daniela. For Diversity and Inclusion Committee Chair, congrats to Bayan. For Legislative Affairs Committee Chair, congrats to Dahlia. For Public Relations Committee Chair, congrats to Aitana. For Student Affairs Committee Chair, congrats to Marion. And for Campus Life Committee Chair, congrats to Michelle.
Good job, y'all. So yeah, that was nominations and elections. So next we can move on to the next order of business, which is items for discussion. Our first item for discussion is the USG Town Hall.
Yeah, so what we've got right now is we have planned a town hall for July 2nd at 6 p.m. with, that's a Thursday, with Chancellor Amiridis, Vice-Chancellor Rex Tolliver, Vice-Chancellor John Coronado, and Provost Poser. And essentially, like, this is an opportunity for students to bring out their questions and concerns that they might have around like ways in which UIC is complicit in, and also steps that UIC is taking to address systemic racism on campus. And so our plan right now is to actually send an email out tomorrow to the entire student body, announcing the event itself, and then also with the link to a Google form for students to send out their questions. Now, for the format, there's also one other person. His name is Ash Stevens. He's a CLJ student, and he was also like heavily involved in the development of this letter of student demands between the BGSA and the BSU that was deposited to the UIC administration. And so he's been spearheading a lot of these efforts like on campus and in the greater Chicago community. And I asked him if he'd be willing to moderate for us during this event. And he said yes. So he will likely be taking on that role. And then we're going to be taking in questions. And then we're also going to be sending those out beforehand to the administration to see like who can best answer like which question, who can best speak to which aspect of this. So like I hope to see y'all there. And basically I would love to like hear everyone's like input, ideas, like thoughts on this, any sort of changes that you want to see me make. Yeah. This is just the first step on all of this, basically.
Does anyone have any questions, any comments, suggestions about the town hall?
I had a really like quick kind of concern. I know that I asked this question while I was talking to Aitana, but I know that it's really important in town halls that I've had previously about Black Student Matters and people of color on campus. There have been what people I think are terming like Zoom bombing, and it's very racially insensitive, a lot of words that I don't know if I should be saying right now, but it's just not the place or the time, especially in this time and these circumstances, for student government to be hosting something and then have something like a Zoom bomb happening. So to prevent that from happening, what like do you think we can do, or what can we work to do to make sure that we're preventing it?
Yeah. So the way we have it formatted, it's kind of like a webinar. So the people that are panelists would be on there, and then the moderator, and that's the only screens that you see. Everyone else can only be using the chat function if they join the Zoom call, or they would be watching via YouTube, because it would be live streamed that way. Does that satisfy some of your concerns? Oh, and then also the link and stuff would only be sent out that morning to kind of prevent people disseminating it elsewhere.
So I think the chat option should be taken away, just because I have been in a Zoom bombing before for a different thing, and it can be very racist to just people like being commenting to like comment stuff. So I don't know if you could do like an option where people can do Q&A, and then they can like ask a question and a moderator can see those questions. Like I don't want to like silence students either, so that's like a very fine line between preventing a Zoom bombing and also like moderating too heavily where students don't feel like their questions will be asked.
Yeah, so there's two functions right now. There's like the chat function, and then there is a Q&A function. So if you think that's better, we can disable then the chat function and leave the Q&A one open.
Wait, let me also tack onto that real quickly. The chat function is only visible to the moderators and panelists. So all 6 of the individuals who are there can see the chat, but no one else.
Can I add to that? So like, how about doing like a Blackboard collab thingy where they can raise their hands and ask a question? Because like they can be muted, they don't have to appear in video, and they don't have chat. Well, if they want to ask questions, they can just click that raise your hand button and ask questions.
And you can do the same on Zoom too, right?
Yeah, I think so. When I was in a meeting, it happened like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll do that then. That sounds good. I like it.
If it's over Zoom, there is an option for the host. I don't know if the co-hosts have this, but at the chat function, when you go to the chat at the right, bottom right, there is three dots, and it says participant can chat with no one, host only, everyone publicly, and everyone publicly and privately. So we can definitely like do host only, or we can do no one. So yeah, that's also an option.
And if cabinet members want to do a practice round sometime this week or next week, early next week, like that would be, I think, even better, where you pretend to like moderate and have moderators and participants, so you could kind of see what it would be like.
Yeah, we can ask them to send us like whatever they have, like a panelist Zoom version that they use. We can ask them to send that over just so we can try it out and see what's up.
Are there any other comments regarding the town hall?
Yeah, I think having like a practice session would be great, just so that all the moderators are prepared if anything does happen, and we're prepared as like watchers to be doing something as well if need be.
Anything else? Okay, so it seems like this is all in the town hall. If you guys have any questions that you would like to ask the speakers, then you can probably email Wasan, or you could send a message to the USG Instagram. And yeah, and people who are in charge of this will make sure to relay your message. But yeah, if there's nothing else in the town hall, then are there any other items for discussion that anyone would like to talk about?
Also, Aitana made a Facebook post for the event page, so please do like share that up if you like Facebook or use Facebook. I'm not a big fan of Facebook myself, but that also has the question Google form. So if you have any questions or you want to send to your friends, like please do.
So I was actually checking out the Facebook page the other day for USG, and I feel like it's not very active. So can we please work on that?
Yes,
Because
of
like right
course.
now, I have
That means we also have to be sending in post as part of the body. Like we can't really rely on other people to find the post and make sure it's appropriate. So it's also our job to make sure that we're sending in posts that are appropriate for the actual public to understand, especially during this time. So it's our job in both ends to make sure it gets done.
Any other comments? Any other items for discussion? Okay, so if not, we can move on to the next order of business, which is announcements. Does anyone have any announcements? Okay, so if there are no announcements, we can move on to the next order of business, which is adjournment. Would anyone like to motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
There has been a motion. Would anyone like to second it?
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded to adjourn this meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All that opposed, please say nay. Does anyone abstain? All right, the ayes have it. This meeting is now adjourned at 7:32 p.m.